How many of you have heard of the 1857 Layman's Revival? Okay, don't worry if you haven't. It's not a crime. That story for me tells me that it's almost as though, and with many other stories I could give examples to, but for me this is the most proficient example that I can use. That testimony of the 1857 revival, and I'll touch it a little, for me is living proof that it's as though until a group of people or an individual ascends to a certain level of prayer, to a degree of prayer where the self dies, to a certain degree of prayer where they no longer present their agenda, to a certain degree of prayer where it's no longer about them, to a degree of prayer where it has nothing to do with their own benefit, but entirely for the benefit of God. And in sincerity, commit to be consistent in that course. I have realized this, that revival cannot truly take place until the hearts of men ascend to that level. Let me say it again. Because of our indifference, because of the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, because of the spirit of the Antichrist that is against the heart and purposes for which Christ came, spread across the earth. Even some of the people who seem most holy, most committed, who express a degree of piety that is unquestionable, when you check their hearts, they don't really come in the presence of God or even create that moment with God for the good and need of heaven. Many of them, of us, if it's prayer, if it's fasting, if it's giving, everything we do for our own benefits, not the benefit of the kingdom. Not the benefit of the kingdom. I have realized that revival cannot take place. God cannot and will not use any man or woman who has not died enough to their own needs, died enough to their own desires, died enough to their own dreams, died enough to their own aspirations, died enough to their cravings and appetites, and they're just alive for one thing: to fulfill the purposes of God on the earth. I tell you, if Christ was to help us by grace examine our hearts sincerely and did an audit on many of us, you'll be surprised the reasons why people come in the presence of God, the reasons why people put days of fasting and prayer, the reasons why people are sowing seeds, the reasons why people are serving. And God, in his infinite wisdom, sometimes he will, by mercy and in love, shake those very things that inspire us to pursue him, because he wants us to get to the level where those things no longer matter to us but him. And that's what happened in 1857. This fellow called Jeremiah Lanphier, during that time, of course, in America, there was civil wars within. There was a lot of lasciviousness, a lot of madness, lewdness, every kind of wickedness in that time. And this fellow from Manhattan, Lower Manhattan, felt that God was drawing his heart for the revival of that nation. Did he have needs? Yes. I'm certain he had needs financially. I'm certain he had needs socially. I'm certain he had needs in every aspect of life. Like every one of us sincerely does have needs. But at that particular point, God gripped the heart of Jeremiah, and he stirred him to the place of wanting to see God in his generation. So a story is given of a date that sticks in my head. 23rd September 1857 was the day he starts a businessman's prayer meeting. But prior to that, a couple of weeks before, he printed flyers, handbills, and started giving them to the people in the city, whoever was passing by. We have a meeting coming on 23rd September, and it's a prayer meeting for revival, 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 prayer meeting for revival. He kept doing that for, they say, approximately 3 weeks. And the story is said that on that day when Jeremiah, a layman, he wasn't a priest, he wasn't a reverend, he had no orientations whatsoever, theologically, as the story would tell. So he is in, he opens the doors for people to come and pray for revival. And only 6 men turned up. After 3 weeks of advertisement, 6 men turned out. And you know why 6 men turned out? Because nothing was mentioned on the agenda for them. It was revival. Some wanted a job. If maybe this fellow was saying, can we gather to pray for jobless people? Maybe the room would fill. Can we, if you have a barren person, bring them. If you have a deaf person, bring them. If you have a blind person, bring them. If you have a broken relationship, come. Witchcraft, generational curses, a hex was put on you. Some sayings were sent to you. The spirits of the dead are pursuing you. Some spiritual husbands are using you. Your husband left and you want him back. I am certain that room could be full because people have problems in this world. And we can pursue him when we have problems. Are you hearing me? Am I communicating? He was calling people to take up some time and seek God for something beyond them as individuals. We want God to save the lost, revive the world. 6 men only appeared in that meeting because only 6 people among all of the tens of thousands of people who received the flyer felt the burden for God to move in the United States of America in a time when that nation needed God most. Those 6 men plus Jeremiah, that is where the heart of God was in that season. There were churches also. There were pastors. There were bishops. There were priests, clergymen who had theologies on their head, but they did not find the need for the revival of that nation. But there were people who were hungry, sincerely desperate to see God move in their generation. This is something I have learned, and listen to me very clearly. This is something I have learned that is of a burden that only God can place on your spirit. If it's not on your spirit, it is not something you can force to feel. It's like love. You don't think that because you have, if somebody doesn't love you, let me say it this way. If somebody doesn't love you, there is nothing you can do for them to love you if they will not love you. You cannot force love. You've heard of people who bewitch other people so they can marry them. Huh? Now, you enter the heart of that person. You ask them, now, if you're at the level where you can sort of wire somebody with another spirit to force them to love you against their own will, what kind of spirit is at work in you? That's how wicked people can be. But anyway, back to this. This is not something that you'd force a man to feel. And as I'm sharing that, I want you to go back to the story of the other mother, the single mother with her son. If you have not heard that story, when you go back home, listen to this sermon. Those of you who have just arrived, listen to this sermon. Whatever you've missed. So, you'd think it's obvious for this son to think and feel pity for the mother, or at least, if he won't earn that degree and be the best he can be, let him be it for his own mother. But he's past that. He's past feeling. The Bible speaks of men who, past feeling, have given themselves over. Past feeling. They no longer feel the things of the Spirit. They're speaking in tongues, but they're past the feeling of conviction. They are fasting in 40 days, praying in 40 days. But they are past, Ephesians 4:19, past feeling, have given themselves over into something. Because when you're past feeling, you give yourself over into something. They no longer feel after. You remember what the Bible says when it says that he has made of one blood all nations on the face of the earth, and he has appointed their times and the boundaries of habitation, that they should seek after him, seek him, if haply they might feel after him and find him, though he be not far from all of them. They might feel after him. There's a seeking that will cause you to feel what God is feeling. That will make you feel the pain that God feels when a non-believer bypasses you. Somebody who doesn't know God, they bypass you, and you feel a pain grip you. And another person, that non-believer passes, but they are past feeling. They don't feel that pain of people going to hell. They don't feel that pain of the sick. The Bible says, and Jesus, being moved by compassion, he healed all of them. That it's important that the Christ felt something inside him before he spread his hands on the sick. It's not enough to ask for healing anointing. It's imperative that as you ask for that healing anointing, there's a way you feel for God. There's a way you feel for God's people. That before you talk about that man or woman of God, feel sorry for the people and keep quiet. For God's sake, just feel sorry for those who learn from him, that might be lost because of your envy and jealousy. I see it among pastors, and he doesn't care whether those members, as the sheep are scattered and they go back into the world, as long as that pastor does not have members and he has them, or as long as they take their attention from that man of God and give it to them, or as long as they settle scores with that man or woman of God, it's okay how many casualties die along the way. Such people are past feeling. There are men of God who have done us so wrong. But you think, if I also give my opinion and side, which is true, those who still call him pastor, who probably might, it's the only thing they hang to, they might lose him. Okay, God, for their sake, let me save that man, because I know your heart toward that lost one and the price it takes to find them. You leave the 99 and go for that one. That you will that no man should perish. So even if it's my enemy, I would say, okay, if they're still saving souls, because at that point, my reputation to keep is not more important than the salvation of the soul that should be preserved. And I should be willing to sacrifice my reputation for the salvation of that soul. Because at that point, my reputation is not more important than the agenda of God. These are not things you put in yourself. These are things that God shows you, and you either say yes to or not to. And I believe to every one of us who has said yes to him, he has tried to draw us. But many a time, some of us, we ignore that way and choose the other way. So back to the Lemon Revival, 1857. So 6 people appear. It reminded me of our university days. Me and a group of people, we about 5, about the same number. There was an older group that had come in. They'd come with some revival in the university, stirred us up. God bless their souls, wonderful men and women of God, whom I love and honor till day. And then those people left. And then they left us in university, me and a few young people. And it was as though everything we knew was gone. There was an atmosphere where you were used to. There was a presence we were used to. There was a lifestyle we had cultivated. These fellows have graduated and left us. Some of the people here know the story because they were with me in the school during that time. And I remember I called a few friends of mine, and we said, can we try to believe God for revival? Can we gather to pray? We spoke to those we could, invited all we could. And I remember that Thursday evening, we used to pray every Thursday. That's why I'm so connected to Thursday. That's why Phaneroo is on Thursday. It comes from there. So I remember, yeah, glory to God. So we come in on Thursday, and we're about 5 of us, 6 of us. And even though we were that number, what was important to us at that time was that the heart of God, the conviction for God to move, was so heavy on our hearts than any agenda. We also woke up and we didn't have fees sometimes. You woke up with pain in your body. In fact, at one point I felt so sick that one time my father came to me and he wanted to discontinue my education because he thought I was going to die. And he said, I think I was so tiny. I became so small, 57 kilos. And he said, I want to take you back home. You ask for a dead year. If you heal, I'll take you back to school. I can't lose my son. And in all that sickness, sincerely, my father was so shocked because even though I was very sick, my heart and desire was for revival. I didn't know anything. There was nothing I knew. I didn't even feel sorry for myself at that point. I knew I was sick, dying in my body. But at that particular point, there was nothing that was burning in my spirit. What I wanted was I wanted to see God. And if that was at the expense of my life, it was not important at that particular point whether I had life or not in me. It was important that something happens in my time. I told people the truth, and this I repeat before some of you, not to boast, but a testimony. I told God, show me a person, show me a man or a woman, and tell me you have chosen this one for the revival of our generation. I will pray for them. I will sincerely pray. Just show me that person and tell me your role, your life's work is to pray for this person. Because me, I never dreamt to be on the pulpit. I'm naturally a shy person, by the way. I hate public eye. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Skype. I'm not on Snapchat. Like, I just can't be taking pictures of myself. Until the gospel, if you go into our family album, there is not one picture that I stood in front and I just stood in front of a camera just to take a picture. That was never. I didn't even want the cameras to look at me. You understand? So, but at that particular point, there was a zeal that I can't explain. But it was that we would see God at any cost. And it didn't matter who was with us, who was ready to pray with us, how many people attended or how many didn't come. It was important how many people felt the things we were feeling. That's the heart that I feel that our generation is losing. So, let me leave my story. Back to Lilleman's revival. Jeremiah Lamphia, on the 23rd of September, 1857, opens the doors, calling men to prayer, not for jobs and cars, but for God to appear. And only 6 men turn up. But it was 6 men with the right heart. 6 men with the what? 6 men with the what? With the right heart. Now the story goes, they started to meet every day, lunchtime, those 6 people, to pray. No agenda, No personal needs mentioned. You don't pray for your husband or your wife, no children. Sorry. You come in the presence just to seek God for other men, your generation. 2 weeks later, after they were praying, 2 weeks after, the stock market collapsed. 2 weeks after, the stock market in New York collapsed. When the stock market collapsed, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of families woke up jobless. It was like a recession. And when that happened, many men were jobless. So some of them said, okay, since I have nothing to do, let me go and pray. You see what God had to do to help to get the attention of some people. He had to create a situation. Some of you, by the way, the things that are happening in your life, and I repeat that because I said that earlier, those things that God has allowed in your life, He's looking for your attention. He's not the one who has brought them, but He can let them such that you no longer look to them. Maria Woodworth Etta buried almost all her children. And after she had buried all of them, God said, aha, now let's go. And she became one of the most remarkable, most influential revivalists the United States of America has ever seen. I'm not saying that you should get to that level, but I'm saying that there's sometimes experiences where God will take the idols out of our way because He wants our attention. And instead of understanding what God is up to, we go back into His presence to seek the idols we've lost instead of seeking Him. Now, when these people come in the revival meetings of Jeremiah Lantier, they came with the need to find healing and solace for what they had lost. And they found men in that room with the right spirit who are not talking about poverty. You come with problems and you meet people who have not come to talk about problems. They know the problems are existing, but they have another spirit in them. They want revival. They want God. They want the power of God to be revealed. They want God to move. They want to see God in their generation. What a disappointing experience it will be for some of you if you died without seeing God. Beyond just a breakthrough, a car, a house, just seeing God move in your generation. What a disappointment. There are people who be like, me, as long as I have a good house, a good car. No. All of those things will follow you, by the way. They will follow you. But to the point where, even when the cars, the houses are there, there's just nothing that satisfies you. Those who know me, my wife will bear witness. Like, I can't buy a new car or what. I'm like, yeah, I'm so excited. It's that's not my nature. Because they know the things that excite my spirit. I died long ago. That's the truth. I died. I'm not boasting. I'm telling you the truth. I died long ago. Yeah, I'm happy that those things are part of me because they're the fulfillment of God's faithfulness. And I'm grateful to God for that. But really, the things that move me are the things that touch the kingdom. You understand? So anyway, these people with all their problems, you don't have jobs, you don't have this. A few of them started coming in to pray. Just coming in to pray. And when they come in to pray, they find men who are not teaching. Because in that prayer revival of 1857, there was no teaching. There was no exhortation. There was no preacher standing before men. Before we are going to pray, I promise you that if you lost a house, God will give you double for your trouble. I love how they preach and they're like, I don't know who I'm talking to right now. I don't know who I'm talking to right now. You're not a chapati. You're a champion. Some preacher said, you're not a chapati. You're champion. You're champion. So there was no exhortation. There was no agenda of people coming to stir up and raise men into the lusts of the flesh. They found kingdom-minded men who were believing God for a move in America. So many of them, as the story said, their mentality changed. They stopped asking for jobs and cars, and they started to simply breathe in and out, God, God, God. The story said, from September 23rd, 2 weeks later, the stock market collapses. That's October something, 14th, 17th. The people started coming in just to pray. The one day, the one session of lunch hour became morning session. Some would come in morning sessions, they go. Some come in the afternoon sessions, they go. Some come in the evening sessions, they go, just to pray. And God caught the agenda of the nation. Their needs were dissolved somehow. And they all had one in common, to see God move. By December that year, there were 10,000 men, 3 months, October, November, December. By December, there were 10,000 men meeting in the very room Jeremiah Lamphere began with 6 men. And there was no agenda, only prayer. 10,000. 57, it pushes into 58 and explodes. Starts to spread into different parts of America, Cleveland, and then others start to hear, and then they join their meetings, state to state to state to state to state. The people in England hear it, and they say there's something happening in America. The very spirit was spreading. It came to England, and by the time it crossed into England, they were saying during that time they were not baptizing less than 20,000 people every week coming to Christ. Not less than 20,000 people every week coming to Christ. Not less than 20,000. More than that every week. So the English had it too. They also started doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it until it is recorded in history that a time came because of the layman's revival. Policemen were laid off because there were no crimes in England. People were no longer committing crimes. So they were laid off and they told them, we have no jobs for you. People are not committing crimes. There's no people to arrest. The government cannot continue spending where there is no need. I'm talking about the power of prayer. And in 1 year from 1857 to 1858, in America alone, they tell you more than 1 million people had given their lives to Christ. More than 1 million people had given their lives to Christ. In just 1 year, more than 1 million people had given their lives to Christ. Because one man handing out flyers with a spirit of revival in his heart invited 6 men to pray. That is how we changed the Makerere. If you remember the first 6 students I met, and now we're in every university. That's how we have done it. We just met a few people and they got that spirit. Among them, there were others who didn't, but those who got it, I can tell you they've been with me for 10 years, 15 years. If you look into their eyes, nothing has changed. They are still as hungry for God as they were when I first met them in their university days. I can mention names, but I will not. But among them also, I noticed there are those who got satisfied early. It was a job, it was something, but they got satisfied early. I also noticed those who never understood it, and we have wept for them. We've cried for them.